event. There's no like service where someone can sit to you and say like, here's the 12 stages of coming out. If there was going to be a step one, it would be you. Well, I don't identify with male and I don't identify with female. So that must mean I'm in the middle. Coming out again. It's almost like I've got a 14-year charm. You're not an issue. Like, you are seen, you are heard, you are welcomed into society, you're welcomed in the community, and you should feel comfortable and confident to be the person that you are. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of INclusiverse. My name is Kally Kaleda, but I am not your host today. This episode is all about kind of coming out at work, an episode dedicated to being in the LGBTQIA plus community. And our host today is the incredible Victoria Nightingale. How are you?
I am stoked to be involved. Thank you so much for inviting me to take you through this episode as the person telling their story this time. But I think the first big question we need to open with is, you've come out before at work. We've talked about that in previous episodes.
Yep.
But we're here to talk about coming out a second time.
2 times the charm.
So who are you?
Yeah, so as the listeners probably know, my name is Kally Kaleda. I have been with Blue Square as a company for nearly 7 years. It'll be 7 years in March. I'm a retail programs manager, so I look after our ambassador program along with my incredible boss and mentor, Carolyn Prudence. I came out as, I want to say, it's like gay is probably the best way to describe it at 14, which back in the mid 2000s, late 2000s was quite rare. Especially, I grew up in a very, very small place. I grew up in Somerset. Those that know, those that don't, you probably will if you've ever seen Hot Fuzz, because that's exactly what it's like. And the exact place where Hot Fuzz was filmed is literally where I grew up. So, came out as gay at 14, and then at the ripe old age of 28, kind of started living more of a non-binary journey, trying to gauge a true understanding of what do I feel comfortable with? How do I feel comfortable? What I want to say, like a label or what I didn't feel comfortable with. And that journey kind of started from the way that I dress, the way that I interacted with people, the way that people referred to me as. So, I don't want to be referred to as like a girlfriend or, getting married and a wife or anything along those lines. That just feels incredibly uncomfortable to me. Whereas when I get referred to like as partner, or whether I get referred to as other half and things like that, that becomes more comfortable. So I think that journey of going through being gay, trying to get comfortable with being gay at 14 is big, especially when, for the lack of a better term, you be like the only gay that you knew, or the only, gay person in your school or in your year.
It's brave as well.
Yeah, it's big, and I think it was even bigger from my family. Like, I'm as far as I'm aware, I don't know any other gay people in my family, so it was a kind of a lot. And then if you double that, coming out again, it's almost like I've got a 14-year charm. I would like to preface, I'm no longer 28. Wish I was, but yeah, going through those kind of stages is 2 completely different things.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important. In my role as head of people development at Blue Square, I talk about growing and evolving, and we're never fixed. We always kind of change and evolve. And I think there's something really beautiful around, first of all, coming out and saying, do you know what, I don't conform to these traditional views of sexuality, and this is who I am. And then, over a decade later, being brave enough to say, I'm challenging some outdated traditional binary gender labels. Yeah. And I would really appreciate it if you see me as me, my true self. I'm Kally. I don't identify with my given name. Don't identify with my sex assigned at birth. Yep. And I'm setting some rules in place with the people around me to say, don't misgender me, don't mislabel me, don't misname me, because I'm now my true self, which is beautiful, so brave, and something that that's not a shared experience, because for myself, I'm in the rainbow community as a bisexual polyamorous cis woman. Some language that actually may make some of our listeners' minds blow already.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Or to be like, oh, maybe they have a misconception of what that is.
Exactly. And we're here to talk about your journey as a non-binary, gender fluid individual who, if I was to gender you as a she, her, would be fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm hoping that there's going to be some listeners out there who hear this conversation and think this is me, and I feel comfortable to come to work in my own skin as myself.
Yeah, 100%.
I also hope that there's going to be some people with some more outdated views that listen to this and may have heard the labels in the past, heard the language and just belittled it, and understand the impact that they have on a human being by pushing through that malicious intent by not adopting someone's preference.
Yeah, 100%. And also, if we're being brutally honest, how I want to refer to myself is not really anybody's business.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect you in any way possible to just call me by my name.
No.
You know, having your own personal opinions is absolutely fine. But if you said, oh, don't call me Victoria, call me Vic, that's not really any different than just saying, just call me Kally.
Yeah, just call me Kally. Yeah. So, so on, labels and language, I am very proudly wearing my she, her badge and also my certified badass badge because
it's a great badge.
Obvious, right? And when I was asked to take you through this journey today, the first thing I did was buy you a they, them badge. And what I love about this is it says geeky, queer and proud at the top of it. So this is for you from me.
Oh, thank you.
So that we can proudly wear our pronouns together, because that'll be a really important part of this conversation.
That's really sweet. Sorry, it's getting a little bit emotional. That is actually incredibly, incredibly thoughtful. Thank you very, very much. And I am going to wear it with pure pride.
Good. You should. And it's such a small tweak to the language we use. And as I said earlier, this isn't a shared experience. I am a cisgendered female. Most of the people I live with and work with would identify as cisgender, as far as I'm aware. And therefore I'm still learning.
Yeah,
so if at any point I slip or misgender you, I want you to correct me.
Yep.
Mostly because I know that a barrier for some people who are less knowledgeable about the rainbow community is they don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And so, my social contract with you, Kally, is if I get it wrong, if I slip up, please correct me.
Yep.
And please know it's not malicious intent.
I would never think that, but I do appreciate it.
Because I think it's really important to say to people, it's okay if you get it wrong, as long as the intent wasn't there, as long as it's a language, a habit versus knowing and consciously choosing to ignore it.
100%. And I've said to the people in my life that already knew this, and they've been incredibly supportive, and they've kind of like pushed me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not in like a, you need to do this, more of a, let people know, give people all of the information, and then you've done your part. Yeah. I can't get over the badge. I think the badge was great. So thank you very much. It's really nice to be in a safe space.
You're welcome. So you've talked about your support network, your friends, your family. Let's look at them for a bit. Can you remember the first time you verbalised that you felt not within the kind of gender constructs of a traditional model? Yeah,
I think it actually stems back to becoming, I think, Kally. I have a very, very feminine government name. Most people know that it's on all of my stuff, but Charlotte was my birth name.
Yes.
I have never been called Charlotte, like my whole life, even down to being like a kid at school. It was always like Charlie, or my dad so lovingly, even though I'm like nearly 30 years old, still calls me Sprog, so that's fun. But I always had some kind of version of my name. Yeah. And then when I went to university and I joined my university football team, because my surname is quite unique, people started calling me Kally, and that just stuck. And I've now had that for over 10 years. And I feel like more and more as we go back to it, that feels more like androgynous. Yeah. It feels more in the middle. It feels more like it could be feminine, could be masculine, could just be. Yeah. And I feel like that probably is where it stems from. Having the realization probably happened maybe 2 years ago in a conversation I was having with my current partner, and I was like, I don't want to be referred to as your girlfriend. It doesn't it doesn't feel right. It actually, like, you have like a physical reaction when somebody says it. And then she was like, do you want to just be my partner? And I was like, that's great for me. I would much prefer that. Yeah. And that's how I've been ever since. And I feel like that's probably the roller coaster and the journey.
How did it feel when you said this to your partner, they agreed that you're not their girlfriend, you're their partner, and I imagine the weight was just lifted off of your shoulders?
What makes this even better is, like, my partner is ride or die, right? So if anybody were to misgender or were to say the wrong thing, there is an instant correction. And it's not done in a negative way. It's not done in like like a patronizing way. It's very much like, no, this. It's
assertive.
This is correct. This is not correct. Yeah. And there have been some challenging conversations where we've had with other family members, and both of us have been on exactly the same page. So if anyone's actually fighting more, it's my other half. Does that make sense?
I love that.
It's awesome. Especially when we talked about, like, if we were to ever get married, which that in itself is a scary concept, but I would be a husband.
I love that. Question is not why it's not hyph, though.
Husband sounds so much better.
It does, actually. Hyph sounds a bit... Yeah, okay. So we were talking about being non-binary. I'm a big fan of the NB podcast, talking about an individual's exploration with non-binary, trying to figure out themselves, as well as being co-hosted with someone who's been out for a lot longer. I think a lot of the people listening to this might be confused as to what that means.
Yeah.
So as I said earlier, we've got sex, as in biology.
Yep.
I'm not going to say YYXY because there are intersex people who 100%. Are born with a mix or a blend of both, and that's really important to address. Biology is a thing. So that's your assigned gender at birth very often.
Yep.
There's gender identity, which is more that internal identity and awareness, and then there's gender expression. Can you walk through, for our listeners, what that means in real life? Once you get away from that language, how does that present as Kally?
I feel like, for me personally, and everybody's journey is different. So to get to the non-binary journey, it started, like, as I mentioned previously, about the way that I dress. Yeah. I don't wear any kind of feminine clothing. Yep. I don't wear any clothing that was designed purely for a stereotypical female gender. Yep. I wear unisex clothing. I sometimes wear male clothing. I wear whatever feels comfortable. That kind of led me into, well, maybe I'm not necessarily comfortable in my skin if this is where society wants to label me. So my gender identity then became, well, I don't identify with male and I don't identify with female. Yeah. So that must mean I'm in the middle.
So where am I?
Yeah. And then my expression became, I dress more masculine, which is how I prefer to be, but not just masculine, but androgynous. So if you looked at me, you wouldn't automatically think male. No. You would just think, oh, is there something else? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I just want people to just be curious. I think being curious is a great thing because it shows that you're actively wanting to learn. Yeah. So ask the question, not a problem. I'm happy to guide. I'm happy to tell you exactly what it is that you need to know. What I don't want is an assumption. One thing that I hope you bring up that we've discussed previously is that the expectation that somebody who's not identifying as a woman or maybe they're transgender or not identifying as a man has to use a disabled toilet.
Which is just so wrong on so many levels.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the tides are turning. They're not turning as quickly as we would like, especially potentially in a corporate world. I feel like there are businesses and companies that could do more to make a space more inclusive, whether it's having individual cubicles, whether it's having a space that's open to everyone, whether it's, maybe you're a small office, you've only got maybe 1 or 2 toilets, just make them multi-gender. Yeah.
Useful.
So it's an inclusive toilet. Anybody can go in or out of there. You've got a lock. It's not like you have to worry about being in there with other people. Yeah. One thing that I think I work on behalf of Samsung have done incredibly well in their KX store is they have individual cubicles. Nice. So you have one kind of bathroom area. You go in and you've got your sink. Yep. You've got your toilet. You've got everything that you need. You lock the door. That's your space. So whatever gender you subscribe to or whoever you feel like you are, you have the safe space to do so. I would just like to see that become more of a quicker thing to happen in other spaces. Yeah.
And you use the word safe, and that's such a big thing, right? There's physical safety, there's psychological safety. And we're not asking people to change, you know, fundamentally their internal belief system, but what we're asking people to do in correctly gendering, you know, seeing you and your true self as Kally and not as a social kind of construct based on birth and biology, is we're asking someone to help create psychological and physical safety for you, right? Mm-hmm. And that is a fundamental, basic need.
And I'll be honest, I actually don't want much from people. So if referring to someone and they them is difficult, just refer to me by my name.
Yes.
That's simply
your chosen name.
My chosen name.
Yeah.
That's exact all I ask for. I'm aware that people are going to naturally say she. I understand. It's that education piece again, but simply my name is enough for me as an individual.
And what I love, and you know, I've interacted with you before today, and there was one moment where that language, that 30 years of language slipped, and I accidentally misgendered you in a training session. And I can remember being very disappointed with myself in the moment, while still having to deliver this training session, but then being very hypersensitive around your behaviours and response to that misgendering. I corrected myself. Mm-hmm. But I think that's in the moment, that was a whoopsie on my behalf, not malicious intent. Mm-mm. And you were so gracious and you didn't pick it up. And then outside of that learning session, you were asked to fill out a form. Mm-hmm. And the options were, are you male or female? Mm-hmm. And quite rightly, you emailed me and said, we need to talk to the provider about creating another option. Mm-hmm. But there is this, you know, filling out forms, this everyday reminder that in a lot of different microaggressions, there's still one or the other. Mm-hmm. And you're not limited to that. You transcend that, right?
I hope so. Transcendence is a great word.
Yes, that's my word of the day, transcendence.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And it's so, on the surface, so minor, but has such a massive impact. 1 in 5 people in the UK are part of the LGBTQIA plus community. That could be gay, lesbian, bisexual, intersex, asexual, trans. It could be any of those.
It's a whole plethora of different flavours,
right? Absolutely. And something so small can impact so many people in that community. Whether you identify as that particular group or not, you're in the community as a whole. It's about having like that one shared voice. Yeah. So by having the options to, like, I don't know, put your pronouns in your email signature as an example, or if you decided to choose a chosen name, being able to update your email address. Yeah. In a work-based capacity, minor, super, super simple, has a massive impact for the people.
Absolutely. So we're kind of talking about microaggressions or unintended kind of negative impact. I imagine, and heartbreakingly so, that you might not have always had an experience like you did with your partner, and you might have some quite, for me, wild stories around where people have not been as accepting of Kally.
Yeah. And a lot of it actually stems from coming out. The coming out as gay, as young as I did, came with a lot of bias, a lot of, it's a phase. Yeah. You'll get over it. Like, you haven't experienced like sexualization. You haven't, experienced
you're
what
wrong.
It's supposed to be, right? Yeah. And then when you start telling people, and I'll be honest, before this episode, not a lot of people knew about my gender journey. The people that did know, I cannot tell you the overwhelming support that has been there, and even people picking up on conversations and coming up to me and saying, I just want to have a private conversation just to make sure you're comfortable. I've overheard X calling you they. Yeah. Is that something you would like me to do as Y? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And those are the level of consciousness. Yeah. There have been instances where I've maybe been out in public with my other half, and maybe we've been going to a bar, getting some drinks, and there's been some, overtly female sexualization towards her as an example. And I've been like, hey, that's not okay. And maybe the partner term or that's them or whatever, my other half. And that has then taken a negative turn. And at that point, it's, okay, just leave this space. It's not comfortable. It's not a safe space.
Yeah. And I can only imagine then in terms of gender coming out that second time. And you said, not everyone knows this about you. And I'm really proud with you. I use that term because I'm not proud of you. I've got no ownership of you. I'm not proud for you. I'm proud with you. I stand by your side as an ally, that you are so bravely coming out a second time and shouting from the hills, this is who I am, this is my true self, and I am going to do this so that if someone is listening who needs a bit of inspiration to be their true self,
100%.
I am here for you.
Exactly. There's no book, there's no website, there's no like service where someone can sit to you and say like, here's the 12 stages of coming out. Like it just...
It's a tick box.
It doesn't exist.
No.
It's not linear. It's a roller coaster. There's stops, there's starts, there's setbacks, you have to process it yourself.
Yeah.
If there was going to be a step one, it would be you.
Yeah, figure it out.
Just understand, okay, do I like this?
Yeah.
Do I like to be referred to this? No. Why do I feel a particular way about this? Oh, maybe I don't want to be called that. Or I prefer to be this. And I like to...
how do I set my rules?
Yeah, and I like to dress this way, and I like to speak this way, and these are all the hobbies that I'm interested in, and all the people that I feel close to. Yeah. Once you start putting the pieces together, it is your support network that help guide you through the rest. Yeah. You don't have to be an expert on what it means to be bisexual, gay, trans, non-binary to be a support network, because your support network is to be educated with you, because you're educating yourself. And I'm really, really hoping that what this episode does is say to people, I'm sorry if you think that this is a one-size-fits-all and this is going to help solve all of your coming out queries, questions and concerns, but it is a safe space for you to ask those questions, like those people that reached out to you on LinkedIn, to be comfortable to say, I feel like I'm this, I'm going through a journey, I'm so confused, let's talk it out, let's understand. You're safe, you're seen, you're heard at Blue Square.
So much. I see you, I hear you, I recognise you.
Perfect.
And what I really want for the end of this podcast is for listeners, whether it's individuals who have an impact on other people, or maybe people who hold influential positions within businesses, whether that's HR at Blue Square, whether that's external businesses, that really have that power to create change if they choose to. So for you, Kally, what do you think is achievable? What would you ask anyone listening to do to help welcome different voices, different people into the conversation?
I think some of it can be so minor as being having the ability to put your pronouns in your email signature. Like from an IT policy, because I know that some businesses you just have like your blanket signature and you don't really edit it. So if you had the option to be like, no, I want to make it very clear that this is my pronouns, so that we don't have to have a conversation again. From an LGBTQIA plus perspective, having like a same-sex policy in terms of maternity, paternity, and all that package. So if you have an adoption, policy as an example, there needs to be something for same-sex, and people that are going through IVF treatment. And
absolutely. Along
those lines, you don't have to be same-sex to be going through IVF. So. No. Having the ability to support your colleagues more that are going through the day-to-day life things. So somebody that's got a given name, being able to change their email address but still keep all of their like documents and things like that to their given name. Or being able to go on your pay service or HR service or your benefits service, whatever that looks like, and not just having like a Ms., Miss, Mr. option. To be able to go in and change that, which could be, an IT change. It could be a business change that needs to happen, but those are smaller things that have a larger impact on somebody.
So I'm conscious we're coming to the end of our time together, and if there's anyone listening who might be confused, might be feeling a little bit lost, might get a sense that it's not quite right, and at the very start of their journey, what message do you want to leave them as an individual?
I think the biggest thing, and we've already discussed it in this episode, is nothing is linear. No journey is the same. Everybody is going to go through their own time frame of things and when they feel comfortable with themselves and who they first have that conversation with. What I would like to say is that just because you are trans, non-binary, gay, whatever that looks like, that's not wrong. You're not. So true. You're not a problem. You're not an issue. Like, you are seen, you are heard, you are welcomed into society, you're welcomed in the community, and you should feel comfortable and confident to be the person that you are, whatever that looks like.
And just finally from me, I really appreciate you and anyone out here. I hope that this podcast has either helped clear up some confusion about language, if you identify as a cis individual, and for anyone going on their journey, or anyone listening, I just really hope that you can thrive as you are, all your icky, sticky human bits included, and just know that you are perfect just as you are. And thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.